Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just the glare on the computer screen. That was all. Have you two boys been to Vrindavan before?
Yes, I think so.
You guess you think so. You don't know. You're not sure, but you think so.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we
How old were you? How old were you when you went?
8, 9,
7 or 8?
something like that.
Something like that.
Probably 15-ish.
So-
I think we went like 3 or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure, around that time.
Okay. Would you like to go today? I mean, by sound, right? Not get on an international flight or anything like that, but through sound we can also go there. It's true. By sound we can go there. Or we can be in direct touch through sound. So that's what we're going to do. The section that we're reading from, Canto 10, Canto 10, that looks really far out. Looks like a watermelon. Excuse me. I got distracted for a moment. Canto 10, Chapter 12. There's lots of space over here, too, if you want. Okay. Canto 10, Chapter 12 is, we're with the Cowherd boys. And then as the chapter unfolds, they're going to have a little encounter with Aghasura, the big serpent. But the part of the chapter is the frolicsome, playful mood of the boys with Krishna. And when they, in that mood, it's like, you'll hear it just as soon as I stop doing an introduction. They're just having a blast, like little boys will do, and really creative ways of blasting with each other. They really have a nice time. And then when they meet Aghasura, it's like, hey, let's go inside, see what's it all about. If it's some danger, Krishna will protect us. Let's go. They're in this euphoria, festival mood, every moment with Krishna. Some of the earlier verses described kvachit, sometimes Krishna will wander off in a distant place. And when Krishna wanders, the boys see him wander because he goes to look at a forest or look at something. And they run after him saying, I will touch him first, I will touch him first. No, me, no, I will touch him first. So they have this competitive spirit to who's going to get really close to Krishna because they can't be without Krishna for a moment. And he knows that, but he's teasing their attachment to him by wandering here and there sometimes, but he's attached to them too. Or Quachit, sometimes they steal something from one of the boys. They have a lunch bag, and they take the lunch bag, and where's my lunch bag? And they throw it to another boy, and they throw it to another boy, and the other boy, and then the boy starts to cry, and they laugh, and then they give him a lunch bag back. And sometimes they do with their ropes, and sometimes with their buffalo horns, and sometimes. So we're going to hear it. So they're just there. It's the earlier commentaries we heard. It's there's it's a little technical. There's Sthai Bhav, Rupa Goswami's terminology. Sthai Bhav means steady ecstasy, and it's the axle, like compared to an axle, that there's wheels on the axle on both sides of the axle, and as the wheels turn, the axle turns. So Sthai Bhav is the basis of their rasa, but rasa is nothing but a mixture of different bhavas. And when, like in an ocean, there's waves and waves and waves and waves. So there's the ocean, and there's waves within the ocean, and the ecstasies are part of making that Sthai Bhava into a rasa. So in the friendship rasa, what's the name for friendship rasa? Bhakto, so Sakha, friend. But then the acharyas detail. There's different categories of friendship. This category, that category. And then there's subcategories of those categories, and subcategories of those categories. That's Nectar of Devotion in the later part. So here we're getting it just in this chapter. And there's, amongst the types of friendship, there's suhrid. And those are boys that they just like to do some close, something of value for Krishna that's like a friend will do for another friend. There's servitorship, but there's an intimacy with that. And the Pandavas are included in that category. Suhrid. And outside of Braja, it's common. It's like, the Sudama Brahmin that Krishna went to school with. They had friendship, and that's in the Suhrid category. And others. Then there's another category, that's Sakha. The Cowherd boys are called Sakhas. That's a certain type of friendship. And the essence of that type of friendship is playing. And then there's categories of those who are Sakhas. And the Priya Narma Sakhas are the most intimate friends that play with Krishna. And one in that category is Radharani's brother, Sridham. There's not a lot described about that in this chapter, but elsewhere we'll see, like the killing of Pralambasura. Sridham and Krishna were paired off with wrestling, because one of the things they would do is wrestle. Krishna would always lose. So the loser has to carry the winner on his shoulders. That's part of the rules of the game. So Sridham would just laugh at Krishna. What kind of big man are you? You always lose. No, so Krishna who kills Aristasura, and Krishna who lifts Govardhan Hill, and Krishna who's, almighty, is always defeated by Sridham. So there's an intimacy where they overlook his divinity or his opulence, and and Krishna enjoys, and they enjoy, and it's a very, very special kind of playfulness that looks like, you'll hear shortly, just little boys playing, doing playing things. And, when little boys pray, it doesn't always make sense. But it's not meant to make sense. When he was younger, he would say things that are just like really strange. And the mothers, Yasoda and Rohini, would give answers. They would carry on like it was a normal question, even though it was bizarre. Like, asking what kind of tree is that, the one that looks like it's got whiskers. That's a banyan tree. And why are the trees moving? And the trees aren't moving, the cart is moving. He would say things that and then he would poke fun at Balaram, and they both laugh and roll around, and they're just behaving, when they're littler. Now they're a little older, and they're doing little older things. So it looks like playfulness, and for those who are knowers of rasa, there's another term that Rupa Goswami uses. They're udipans. Nice Sanskrit term. Means stimulations for ecstatic love. Just hearing, it's stimulation for ecstatic love. What to speak of participating when they would do this and then Krishna would do that, and it's just enhancing the bhavas of the sthai bhava and turning into different flavors of rasa. Like ice cream has different flavors. It's still ice cream. But so the Cowherd boys have different flavors of enjoying with Krishna, and the different activities are different stimulations of those ecstatic emotions in this sakha mood. So that's what we're hearing. We're getting a real close-up picture, and then with the assistance of the commentaries, what's it like to be a Cowherd boy? You don't need a movie, you just hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and the picture starts to flow. So this is a series of verses clustered together. This is Prabhupada's purport we're going to read. Canto 12, chapter 12, verses 7 through 11. And the last line is Krita Punya Punja. Those of you that have heard Prabhupada speak, that's an important phrase. Translation. All the boys would be differently engaged. Some boys blew their flutes. Others blew bugles made of horn. Some imitated the buzzing of the bumblebees, and others imitated the voice of the cuckoo. Some boys imitating flying birds by running after the birds' shadows on the ground. Some imitated the beautiful movements and attractive postures of the swans. And some sat down with the ducks, sitting silently. And others imitated the dancing of the peacocks. Some boys attracted young monkeys in the trees. Some jumped into the trees, imitating the monkeys. Some made faces, as the monkeys were accustomed to do, and others jumped from one branch to another. Some boys went to the waterfalls and crossed over the river, jumping with the frogs. And when they saw their own reflections on the water, they would laugh. They would also condemn the sound of their own echoes. In this way, all the Cowherd boys used to play with Krishna, who is the source of the Brahman effulgence for Gyanis, desiring to merge into that effulgence, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead for devotees who have accepted eternal servitorship, and for ordinary persons who is but another ordinary child. The Cowherd boys having accumulated the results of pious activities for many, many lives, were able to associate in this way with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can one explain their great fortune? Krita Punya Punja. Prabhupada's purport. As recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami, quoting Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Tasmat kenapi upayena mana Krishna naveshayet. I'll read it again. Tasmat kenapya upayena mana Krishna naveshayet. Quoting from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also mentioned Canto 7, Chapter 1, Text 32. Somehow or other, whether one thinks of Krishna as an ordinary human child, as the source of the Brahman effulgence, as the origin of Paramatma, or as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should concentrate one's full attention upon the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, 1866. Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. Srimad Bhagavatam is the easiest way of directly approaching Krishna. Ishvara sajyoridya avrudatetra kritibi shushrut shubis tatkshanat. 112 Bhagavatam. Diverting even a little of one's attention toward Krishna and activities in Krishna consciousness immediately enables one to achieve the highest perfection of life. This is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Lokasya janato vidvangs chakre sattvata samhita. Bhagavatam 176. The secret of success is unknown to people in general, and therefore Srila Vyasadeva, being compassionate toward the poor souls in this material world, especially in this age of Kali, has given us Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Paranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. 12, 13, 18 Bhagavatam. For Vaishnavas who are somewhat advanced or are fully aware of the glories and potencies of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavatam is a beloved Vedic literature. After all, we have to change this body to ta dehantara prapti. If we do not care about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we do not know what the next body will be. But if one adheres to these two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, one is sure to obtain the association of Krishna in the next life. Chakva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Therefore, distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world is a great welfare activity for theologians, philosophers, transcendentalists, and yogis. Yogi nama pisarve sham. As well as for people in general. Janma labha para pungsam ante narayana smriti. Bhagavatam 216. If we can somehow or other remember Krishna, Narayana, at the end of life, our life will be successful. And now we're going to read two commentaries, and they're a little extensive, but it's expanding the verse in a way different than Prabhupada expanded the verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, just focuses on the Leela. They blew their horns, they chased the shadows of the birds, they pulled the tails of baby monkeys hanging from the branches, and by that climbed up into the trees. They made funny faces, and with baby monkeys jumped from branch to branch. They jumped into pools of water, filled up from the flowing rivers with the frogs, they laughed at their own shadows, raising their arms in the air and cursed their echoes. Aha! Who are you speaking? Hearing a single syllable echo back, they became angry. What is this? Answering back to me with Ray, Ray, Ray. Today you will die. This way, they would curse again and again with no final solution. Paragraph. Having previously described the playing of the cowherd boys, this verse praises the good fortune of all the Vrajvasis above everyone else's fortune. In this world, there are three types of people: Gyanis, Bhaktas, and Karmis. The word satam indicates the Gyanis with some trace of devotion. The inhabitants of Braja played with Krishna, who is the knowledge and happiness of Brahman for the Gyanis. By this, it should be understood that Krishna's body, with which the Brajvasis played, contains the Brahman. The word sat cannot apply to those Gyanis who think the body and form of Krishna as material. Dasya Gananam refers to all the genuine devotees other than the inhabitants of Braja who see Krishna as their worshipable Lord. There's different categories. So he's taking that phrase from the verse and just expanding the categories. The Brajvasis played with Krishna, who is seen by other devotees as their reverent Lord. The Brajvasis played with Krishna, who is perceived by those involved in material happiness, Maya Shritanam, as an ordinary human, Nara Darakena. The Gyanis have realization of Krishna, but they cannot play with him. The Dasya Bhaktas worship Krishna in reverence, but they are not qualified to play with Krishna. The Karmis have no realization of Krishna, nor worship, since they have no respect for him. So what to speak of playing with him? And the Brajvasis played with him. Though he is complete in bliss, they gave him more intense bliss in the pastimes of prema, and they also attained remarkable bliss in all ways. Therefore, more than all others, they were fortunate. Krita Punya. This is, of course, a material viewpoint for the Nitya Siddha inhabitants of Braja, who surpassed the Gyanis and Dasya Bhaktas by far. The cause of the playing with Krishna cannot be material piety. Here, punya can only mean activities pleasing to the Lord, by which the Lord comes under the devotee's control. This is the point we discussed yesterday. And then we'll end with, there's a nice long description by Jiva Goswami on these verses, 7 through 11. 4 verses describe what they did when they went off in the distance. Some played flutes. While they played, others blew horns in order to perfect their association with Krishna and in order to find him quickly. Or, after touching him, they performed these individual activities in bliss to give him happiness. The word sadhu, expertly, is an adverb modifying all the verbs. They made faces like the monkeys, or caught the tails of the baby monkeys on the branches and pulled their tails. The creeks were filled with water from waterfalls. The creeks were narrow. They laughed on seeing their shadows, since the shadows were very long. They laughed in special ways such as throwing their arms in the air, or they imitated their reflections by making faces. Satam refers to those who have manifested the state, or sat, of their highest swarup, or those who have the quality of sat because of closeness to Brahman. In either case, it refers to jnanis. Anubhuti, from those verses, means the self-manifesting substance whose correlative is dull matter. Anubhuti means the self-manifesting substance whose correlative is dull matter. So the spiritual anubhuti. This conscious entity is happiness. It gives happiness, since it is the highest form of Atma, or Krishna. It is the basis of the highest unconditional prema. It is called Brahman, the greatest, since it is the highest swarup for all the jnanis, by appearing only in that form for them. Going through the sequence again. For devotees with Dasya Bhakti, he appears the most worshipable deity, full of all powers. In order to show the greatness of Krishna, these two realizations are shown to be very rare by showing the opposite. The opposite is the materialists. Those who are covered by Maya think of Krishna as a human child, since they have no jnana and no bhakti. The boys did not play with Krishna in that form. The boys played with Krishna, who gave them his association because he was controlled by their prema. Quote, they had accrued heaps of piety. This is a mundane statement. Actually, they had piles of pure splendor, or punya, caused by the highest mercy of the Lord, who performs pastimes, krita. The dictionary, Amara says punya means splendor, or charu. Paragraph. Shukadev's intention is to show that Krishna is an extraordinary form of Aishwarya and Madhurya. That is, he is the form of highest bliss. He has unlimited natural control with unequaled powers. He is attractive to all by his unequaled sweetness. He has natural excellences in his form, qualities, and pastimes. The means of different realizations are jnana bhakti mixed with reverence and pure bhakti without reverence. Without these three methods, people of the material world will only have a shadow realization of the Lord, since they cannot contact him at all. Krishna says, Naham prakasha sarvasha yogamaya samavrata. I am not revealed to everyone, since I am covered by my yogamaya. Bhagavad Gita 9:25. He then refers to a verse, chapter 23 of Canto 10. They failed to recognize, this is a translation of a verse, they failed to recognize that he is the supreme absolute truth, the directly manifest Lord, whom the material senses cannot ordinarily perceive. Thus, bewildered by their false identification with the mortal body, they did not show him proper respect. This is the brahmanas who were requested by the Cowherd boys to give something to Krishna. So they had knowledge, but they didn't have devotion, so they couldn't perceive him. Paragraph. The status of realization is stated in the verse. The realization of the Lord with power is more complete than realization of Brahman. And that's Another verse is being quoted. The Devatas constantly dwell with all good qualities in that person who has pure bhakti for the Lord. This Canto 5, chapter 18, verse. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana. You know the verse? Sarvayushkanaj tatra sama sute sara. Within someone who's a devotee, all good qualities reside. That's the verse. It is complete because it contains within it all aspects of knowledge. This is bhakti. Bhakti is complete because it contains within it all aspects of knowledge of the Lord. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tattvataha. Only by devotion does a person know me as I am. However, pure bhakti without reverence is more praiseworthy than bhakti with reverence. And then Jiva Goswami refers to one of Brahma's prayers. Canto 10, chapter 14. How greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd man, and all the other inhabitants of Braja. There is no limit to their good fortune because the Absolute Truth, the source of transcendental bliss, the eternal Supreme Brahman, has become their friend. Paragraph. Thus, one realizes one's swarup by impersonal gyan. One realizes the Lord with power by bhakti mixed with reverence. One realizes the Lord with sweetness by knowledge filled with priti, love. The manifestation of the highest sweetness of the Lord cannot be known by the impersonal gyanis. It is not sufficiently achieved by persons with dasya bhav, because the bhakti cannot comprehend the Lord fully with a heart restricted by reverence. But in considering the absolute entity in all its forms, that intimate realization is most relishable. And he quotes the Atmarama verse. Atmarama Shamunayo Nirgrantha Api Urukrame, that verse. Some sages, translation, some sages who are Atmaramas, beyond the scriptures, false ego and rules, also practice unmotivated pure bhakti to the master of pure bhakti, Krishna, since he possesses qualities attractive to even them. Interesting translation. Then another reference, Canto 2, chapter 1, Shukadev speaking. Though I was fixed in Brahman and beyond the gunas, my mind became attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. The Atmarama becomes attracted to Krishna. I thus learned about his pastimes. I will tell you about them. Paragraph. Krishna is the ocean of all powers. Brahma bhavoham I yashakala kalaya shish chodvahema chiram. Meaning, great demigods like Brahma and Shiva and even the goddess of fortune and I are simply parts of his spiritual identity, and we also carefully carry that dust on our heads. That's Balaram speaking. Balaram took him as a friend. Bhratri sneha pariplutaha. With his friends in Braja, he acted as follows. Here's a reference, Canto 10, chapter 11. We're getting this whole big picture. Jiva has access. He doesn't have a computer, but he has a mind. It's better than, his mind is better than any computer's memory. And he has access to the taste, the flavor of different verses, and how the different verses are illuminating Braj Bhakti, Braja Prema. So he's stitching it all together for us. So this is Canto 10, Chapter 11. We're in Chapter 12, and 11 comes before 12. It's, again, the Cowherd boys and things that the Cowherd boys would do. Sometimes, like bulls, they roared loudly with the other boys, disguised as cows and bulls, and would fight with one another, roaring loudly. And sometimes they would imitate the voices of the animals. In this way, they wandered about exactly like two ordinary human beings, human children. 2 paragraphs and we're done. Their priti as friends, with no restriction of reverence, expands at every moment because of its lack of restriction and its special nature with fullness. Krishna's heart responds to that, and accordingly, his friends realize the exceptional sweetness of his form, qualities, and astonishing pastimes. What more can be said? Like churning the ocean to get nectar, such intimate love produces the highest sweetness and control of Krishna because of their sweet love. This is not seen in the Jnani or the devotee with reverence, but in the people of Braja. That he has given such pastimes to all of Braja, Krita, Punya, Punja, is most astonishing to us. Or the first line can be explained as before. Final. Now, in this avatar, even the materialist realize Krishna as a sweet child by his mercy, or those who take shelter of his mercy, which is another meaning of the word maya, maya shratena, ashraya, maya ashratena. Those who take shelter of his mercy realize Krishna is the highest form of sweetness, a small child. They also played with him, the Cowherd boys. So we've been hearing a lot about Cowherd boys. And this is chapter 12. And what comes after chapter 12 is chapter 13 and 14. And, you know, the Aghasura situation, and Brahma's seeing all of that, and he goes, wow. What's the limit of Krishna's mystic powers? It's a nice question. We may ask that question. But what he did with the question wasn't so nice. He matched his mystic powers against Krishna to see what Krishna would do. That's not a good idea. And then, so the rest of the events flowed, and Krishna showed him the unlimitedness of his mystic powers, and he was overwhelmed. He nearly fainted, and then offered prayers. Chapter 14. So that unlimited Krishna is playing like a little boy with those that have affection for him, unrestricted by some sense of his greatness. So that's one of the ways that we are accustomed to speaking about this is in Braja, the sweetness Madhurya overwhelms Aishwarya. And because Madhurya overwhelms Aishwarya, he can display his Aishwarya and it's not a problem. It doesn't disturb them. But then going in concentric circles out from Braja to Mathura and then to Dwaraka and then into Ayodhya and into Vaikuntha, opulence becomes more pronounced. That is to say, the sweetness becomes diminished. And as the sweetness becomes diminished, it's like this dasya bhakti. That's nice, dasya bhakti. So they're in this sakha relationship that is stronger than dasya. And dasya, he's the reverent, the object of our reverence. Now, in Braja, he also has friends. He also has servants. He has servants outside of Braja, but he has servants inside Braja. One of them is Daruka, and Daruka fans Krishna. He has some, there's sweetness in his fanning of Krishna. We hear when he's fanning Krishna, he starts to feel such ecstasy, it interferes with his fanning. So he tries to check the ecstasy because he wants to fan. Doesn't want the fanning to get in. We're the other way around. We get a little, experience that's really nice with kirtan or japa or something. We just get carried away. And when we get carried away, we forget what we're doing. I forget Krishna is to be pleased, not us. So the Cowherd boys they're totally absorbed. It's in Krishna's pleasure, in friendship, but his greatness is not it's not in their mind because the sweetness is so strong. That's what we're hearing in this sequence of verses. What they do, and so there's Gyanis, there's Dasya Bhaktas, there's materialists, and they're in the category of their own, the Cowherd boys. And we discussed this point yesterday, repeat it. The Krita Punya, it can refer to Krishna or it can refer to the Cowherd boys. But if it refers to the Cowherd boys, the Punya, what pious activities have they performed? It's not material piety. It's bhakti and bhakti and bhakti and bhakti and bhakti and bhakti, and so much bhakti there's nothing left. And so in that their good fortune is the sweetness of Krishna is everything for them. And so then we discussed this is just review, but there's Nitya Siddha, Cowherd boys. Krishna has this unmanifest and then sometimes manifest Leelas, Prakat Leela. Once in a day of Brahma it becomes Prakat. And all the rest of the time it's Aprakat. So they're eternal associates. And they don't become eternal associates, they're eternal associates. And then there are those that are sadhana siddhas, and they're apprentices to the Nitya siddhas. They're getting trained up how to be in that position of service. Different kind of apprenticeship than, what you do when you go to college and you find a job that you like and then you do apprenticeship for a while, or become a medical doctor and you do that rotation thing and you learn by the people that are, anyway, or you go into the corporation and it's a different kind of apprenticeship. It's amongst perfected souls. And they're refining their understandings and their mood and their services and everything and everything. Let's see if there's some discussion. $7:25. Nice topic, huh? makes you kind of forget the world, and at least for a little while. So anyone in the room, we are offering that first, and it's helpful because it gives time for the people online to send their questions in. So if there's anyone who's present would like to share something, hear something. You have something? No? Okay. Our teenagers, how we doing? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. Okay.
Haribol Guru Maharaj, you were saying when we were hearing, like the, I'm like not so clear, but I'm just still trying to make up the question. So like we were hearing, so it's not the knowledge you are talking about. It's if we have knowledge but not the realization of Krishna, and all the descriptions you are giving, like it's not the Brahmanas, though they have knowledge but they don't have the realization of Krishna. And you, in that you were describing the different aspects where different things, like in that one thing which struck was the heart, not having the open heart. So I was just like, I was thinking like...
What's your question?
So is it that like when we are hearing and when our heart is not open, that's where we can't like understand Krishna, or we are...
Yeah.
That's just...
Somebody from China just asked me a question, and I responded it before coming, and it fits. Chapter 13, verses 8 through 12. And this devotee may be listening because they're one of the translators. Chapter 13, text 8 through 12. It's items of knowledge. There's six questions at the beginning of chapter 13. One of the 6 questions is, what is knowledge? And then, what's the object of knowledge? Jnanam Geyam. What's knowledge? So in that purport, Prabhupada describes, maybe I'll just open my computer and read exactly what he says, but he describes knowledge has different levels, like a staircase, step 1, step 2, etc. And knowledge can be thought of in those terms, different steps. And then the topmost step is to know Krishna. But there's knowledge that can lead to Krishna. I mean, there's the so-called knowledge, that's another thing, that just covers knowledge of Krishna. But knowledge of Krishna that's like step 1, step 2, staircase kind of metaphor. And then there's another metaphor. The other metaphor is the metaphor of a chandelier. So 1866 Bhagavad Gita, it indicates the chandelier model. So there's something that holds the chandelier, and that's the thing that's in the ceiling. And then the whole chandelier is suspended by that one thing. So similarly, in the purport of Canto, chapter 13, verses 8 through 12, the topmost one, the thing that suspends the chandelier, is undivided devotion to Krishna. Mai chananya yogina bhaktir avyabhicharini. Undivided devotion to Krishna. And what can give one access to that undivided devotion to Krishna is acharya upasana, worship of the representative of Krishna. And the perfect example of Krishna's teaching embodied in that person. That's the acharya. And respecting and worshipping and associating with that person, sadhu sangha, acharya upasana. And then there's others. Humility and pridelessness. That's the first in the list. So those are the crystals of the chandelier. And then there's what suspends the chandelier. So those are two different metaphors. The staircase, the chandelier. So there's levels of, now back to your question, there's levels of our heart being open, levels of our heart being not so open, and it can vary at different times. Even when you're during your chanting of japa, or you're cooking in the kitchen, or you're doing whatever you're doing, and that you're doing your duties in life. That can be more or less. When you're hearing these nice pastimes, the mind can drift and be thinking about what you have to do tomorrow, or something went wrong yesterday, or it can be, the mind can be distracted by so many things. But when the mind is absorbed, that fills the heart. So the mind needs to be pure in order for the heart to be fully receptive. So it's like the weather in Detroit. The changes a lot. That's the material circumstance that we're subjected to, and the idea, the bhakti principle, is to clear the affinity for matter part and make the heart open. So one helps the other and vice versa. Or the distractions with the mind obstructs the heart that's open, because we're worried about stuff and absorbed in stuff. So if we can somehow come, so bhakti, sadhana bhakti means to come to the stage where the heart is, the mind and senses have become connected to Krishna, and thus the heart has become freed to contemplate. And it's a gradual process. So back to, again, specifically your question. A little bit, not so well-formed question, but I think I know what you're asking. We're somewhere in between, we're in this unsteady bhakti space, like a sine curve, up and down and up and down and up and down. And so the heart's sometimes more, sometimes less open. So we're going to have more or less realization, appreciation of Krishna. And let's say even specifically this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, or sound vibration, or the mantra, or anything. The bhakti connected, Krishna connected. And even for those who are pure, there's more pure and most pure. And the information we're hearing, I'm adding to your question, this most pure situation is the Brijbasis. All of them. All of them. There's different categories of rasa within them, and even those that we heard in chapter 35, even those that are inanimate, the river, the clouds, the rocks, or the immovable living entities, the trees and the creepers, by Krishna's association, by his touch, by his flute sound, they erupt in ecstasy too. So what to speak of? So their hearts are pure. Our hearts are not. And when our hearts are not, it means there's something covering and they're not fully open. So we have to make the heart pure. The primary method for us is Shravanam Kirtanam. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, all these descriptions of the spiritual world is so wonderful.
It's so wonderful, isn't it? Let's go.
I'm puzzled. What comes over the living entity that they choose to get away from that thing? I mean, is it just their own
It's very
individual
irrational,
thing?
isn't it? It's totally irrational. There isn't a good reason. Rebellious spirit.
I mean, just by hearing it, we are feeling so much of satisfaction.
Yeah. Let's go.
So,
And the way to go is through sound. Sound covers, sound liberates. I'm meditating on an essay. Sound covers, sound liberates.
sound liberates, I can understand, Maharaj. The sound covers.
The material creation begins with sound. To get attached to something, you have to have something. The something manifests through sound. The whole process of creation. It's a Sankhya topic. Before there was, the cosmic, there's Sarga and there's Visarga. And Sarga is the Lord's creation. He gives the elements and the objects and the senses and the deities overseeing all of that. He does it. Brahma doesn't do it. He does it. And Brahma just takes the blueprint and fills it out. He's not the architect. He's the contract manager, or whatever you call him. Okay?
I have another question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to frame this right. We hear that nothing material can attract the spiritual or bhakti.
Nothing material
Can attract bhakti, right? Or devotional life, or devotional service.
Well, okay. Definition of what's material is important, but go ahead.
So, does being pious or piety help in devotional life?
It doesn't hurt.
But it doesn't start the real journey.
That's right.
Okay.
If you get dry wood instead of wet wood, it's better. But dry wood doesn't become fire. It has to be in touch with fire. Okay?
And one more question. At the same time, we have seen that there's so many, if you see Prabhupada's life, there's so many people who were not pious, not piety, nothing, they're totally different, but they really caught on to the devotional life.
Yeah.
So, again,
Why?
how did it, one is, how did it reach them? Why only them? And what made them pick up?
The why has a really nice Sanskrit phrase. Yadrichchaya. Somehow or other. Okay, causeless mercy. Okay. And what's the cause of causeless mercy? It's causeless. That's not satisfying because we want cause-effect, please. What's the cause of causelessness? There isn't. It's causeless.
Because we also hear that when the student is ready, the teacher comes, kind of a thing. But
anyway, you can tweak it any way you like, but causeless mercy is causeless. So by mercy, it just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and you bumped into bhakti, and you got bhaktiized. So now the second part was why, and then one was what? How does it happen to begin with, and then?
yeah, and then how is that only some people are
Well, you can say no.
accepting it.
No. And some people say yes. Some people say, let me think about it.
So it's just a condition of the heart, condition of the heart.
It's choice of free will, and there's things that move the choice of the free will. But it's free will. The bottom line is it's free will. Guna and karma may say yes or no, but you can still say yes or no. You're not bound by guna. Bhakti isn't bound by guna and karma. Not created by or destroyed by. Some people, like Prabhupada, would speak about it very openly. You know, the people from the hippie movement, the counterculture movement, you know, their whole life was licentious. And they just gave it up. No, not everybody gave it up, but some people gave it up. And they gave it up in the strength of bhakti. Because they wanted. I mean, they wanted many things, but ultimately they wanted love. And from Prabhupada they got love. They said yes. And you know, with love for Prabhupada meant love for Krishna. Because he wouldn't put himself at the center. But his qualities were so attractive. It's just...
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
There's some online questions.
Anyone else in the room? Invitation one more time.
Maharaj, the Lord Balram being, personality of Godhead, like, I was just wondering, like, how during that 1 year he didn't know?
It's described by our acharyas during that 1 year. By Krishna's desire, he was covered by Yogamaya such that he didn't know, although he's omniscient. And then, and that 1 year was over, the acharyas describe little by little, not all at once, the curtain of Yogamaya was withdrawn, and he started to see things that he didn't see for that whole year. And then it finally came, aha, Krishna's having fun. So we'll go to online, and those of you that are not just, those of you that are from this area, please come up with some questions. Because this is for you. That's why we're here. Go ahead.
This question is from Udayanandana Das Prabhu. Guru Maharaj, does the type of rasa depend on place and object? For sadhakas like me, which is supposed to be the prominent one? Sakya or Dasya towards Krishna or Guru?
Well, go back. It's that which is spiritual is not dependent upon something material. The elements don't create spiritual. And then what's best for you is don't worry about what your rasa is. That's what's best for you. Just worry about being, connected to Krishna in the bhakti process. Krishna should be pleased. Just focus on Krishna should be pleased. And if you can get on the other side of selfishness and think in terms of Krishna will be pleased, Krishna is the one to be pleased, things will become revealed to you that you don't understand today, including rasa and other things.
This question is from Uttama Bhakta Das Prabhu. Since originally everyone is a devotee, which means ultimately each one will come to that level in due course of time.
Each one will come to what?
Each one will come to that level in due course of time.
That level, okay.
Whether karmi, jnani, yogi, or even a demon?
Well, it's a free will choice. There's not a guaranteed. Everyone's got a ticket, and they're going to go back to Godhead after some time. No guarantee. There's no such ticket. There's there's a path. One who follows the proper path can go to Krishna. But not everyone's going to go to Krishna. According to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us free will. Unlimitedly forever, as far as time stretches. One can remain in the material atmosphere.
The next question is from Sancharidasi Mataji. We see in Krishna's Prakrila, the feelings of separation is an integral part of the pastimes.
Yes.
Does physical separation exist in the spiritual world as well? I'm thinking about.
It's not physical separation, it's spiritual separation. And yes, of course it exists. It's a feeling. There's all feelings in the spiritual world. It's also there.
I'm thinking about how the residents of Vraja, but especially the Cowherd boys from this reading, can't stay a moment away from Krishna. Yet, because of material time, they have to go to sleep or go home and face separation from his physical form, especially with quote-unquote finality when Krishna leaves Vrindavan. How does separation act on the associates of Krishna in the spiritual world?
Same as it acts here. Same. That's all. It's the same. Don't look at me like that. It's the same. Next question.
This question is from Saranga Thakur Das from Seva Priya Didi. Srila Prabhupada says, their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna. Why did Prabhupada use the term heart and souls?
Why not? I mean, it's sometimes in Sanskrit language is very specific, and sometimes translations of Sanskrit words vary, and sometimes conventional language conveys a certain meaning. So there's all these different varieties of how you use language. One way to take why he uses heart and soul is it's conventional. Not like, nothing. Not that there's some special meaning behind that heart and soul. That's how I take it, heart and soul. Conventional.
The question continues. So even in pure devotees, we have immature and mature devotees?
Yes.
If so, what are the qualities of a devotee whose souls are constantly submerged in Krishna?
There's no gap. I mean, a really nice answer to your question. You can go to Nectar Devotion and read the characteristics of one who has attained the stage of bhava. And there's no interruption. And so, like one of those examples is they don't waste any time. Every moment is fully engaged. There's no wasting of time. So any one of us, each of us guaranteed that are not perfected souls, they're time wasters. And you make a list and what are some of the time waster things. So it doesn't mean like run from one thing to the next thing because you don't want to waste time. It doesn't mean how fast you go. It's your mindfulness or the absorption in Krishna as opposed to distraction in contemplating being the enjoyer of something temporary. We're conditioned souls. Or it's not like we should beat ourselves up, but it's just her question is, what are the symptoms? So it's a nice list. You'll find it in Nectar Devotion, and that's some good standards to go by.
This question is from Amara Mataji. How to discriminate between selfishness and practicality in service to Krishna?
It's the mood. Selfishness is who's at the center. And practicality is Krishna's at the center. And I'm considering, the big picture of circumstances and how to best be in service to Krishna. That's the practicality. Let's take Mother Jasoda as an example. She's churning butter. This is the Damadar Leela. She's churning butter. Which the reason she's churning butter is Krishna's butter thief. This is chapter 9, Canto 10. She's considering, my friends are always complaining that Krishna is stealing. And maybe it's because stealing butter. Maybe it's because these ladies that are assisting me in churning the butter, they really don't know how to churn butter. So you know what? I'm going to do it myself. Today's Diwali. I'll just give them the day off and I'll go churn butter myself. So she's churning butter or singing songs of Krishna. And she's like having a bhajan as her ornaments on her wrist are clanging like kartals, and the paddles and the butter churn is like the mridanga, and she's singing without a songbook. She's got her bhajan program going on. And Krishna comes, and Krishna wants to be breastfed. And Mother Jasoda knows, but Krishna doesn't even wait. He just grabs the rope, the butter, the churn, so she can't. So she stops. And she looks at Krishna, puts him on her lap, and enjoys looking in his eyes, and he looking into her eyes, and she begins feeding him. So now here comes Practicality 101. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees the milk on the stove is boiling. It's going to boil over. So she's got to do something practical. And she considers, this is rational, practical thinking. If I don't take care of the milk, then it'll boil over the pot. So I have to take care of that. And I can come back and feed Krishna when I come back. So she does what's practical. She didn't do something wrong. She's doing practical for the service of Krishna, because the milk is for Krishna. That's not what Krishna wanted, because there was a Leela, so he became angry and he broke the churning pot with a stone and went to go steal butter. And so there's practical considerations for Mother Jasoda. So, but there's no selfishness. And so on. You can take a look at any pastime, and the practical doesn't mean selfish. There's not a line between selfish and practical. There's selfish and non-selfish. Go ahead.
This question is from Pooja Shobha Chopra Mataji. How to become selfless in this lifetime?
How-to question. Practice bhakti very nicely and you'll become selfless. Next question.
Saranga Thakur Das Prabhu asks, also Prabhupada says pure devotees' minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yeah.
And in the instructions of Krishna, he says, fix your mind on me.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in fixing the mind and mind not being diverted?
Well, it's just whether you're looking at it from this end of the stick or that end of the stick. But it's the same stick. Go ahead, next.
Yeah. This question is from yesterday evening.
Okay, but before we go to yesterday evening, one more invitation to our nice devotees in the room.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maybe this is another how-to question. Initially, just personal experience. Initially, when I met devotees, it was dry, like it caught fire, like I was able to relish.
And then?
Over a period of time, it's become more routine, right? I have to chant because it's like...
You have to chant, that's why you have to chant.
You have to chant. It's not like because I have taste, it's like brushing the teeth, like I have to chant.
Yes, that's good. That's right.
Right? So,
Supposing you stop brushing your teeth. That would be good.
So it's not, like I'm doing it, it's more mechanical, like everything.
I get it, yeah.
Right. So like even going to the temple, because it's become a routine, it's not like free will. I'm accustomed to these things.
But that's also free will. Your question is how to go beyond mechanical. There's two questions. How did it go from I like it to mechanical? And the second question is how do I go beyond mechanical, back to I like it?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I started with I like it when I first...
I got it. Welcome to the club. You're not weird. You're just like everybody else. It's not. It's standard. So don't feel uncomfortable. I mean, certainly there are people that don't have that, but it's very common. Why and what to do. It's more important to know what to do. If you can, I can give an explanation of the why. It takes a little bit of time, but it's more important is now that I'm in this mechanical phase, what to do. Okay, that's the main thing. Nice topic. Because it's an important topic and because it comes up a lot, expressed in different ways by different people, but how to go back to the heart. So there's a whole series of presentations on From the Heart, and I can have somebody send you the link so you can go through the detail, but the principle is what's the essence of bhakti? The essence of bhakti, according to Rupa Goswami, Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. It's following the example of perfected souls, please Krishna. And we didn't start with pleasing Krishna. We started with whatever you might say, one of the 4 reasons that people take up devotional service. And we felt something because, we were eager for one of those 4 things. And after one of those 4 things, or a combination of those things, become met, what's the motivation anymore? And so, and second is there's some offense. An offense makes the heart covered with anarthas. Aparad results in anartha, like, taking for granted. Supposing you invite somebody to your home and they ring the bell and you invite them in and you just don't even pay attention to them, you're busy and stuff. You don't even say like, I'm trying to finish up a couple of little things here, I'll be with you shortly. But you invited them to your home. That's not good manners. But we do that with Krishna. So that's offense. And so there's consequences, and that's this, mechanical. So, how to move from the mechanical is to hit the reset button on, why did I take up devotional service to begin with? And you'll get one of these 4 reasons. And so you have to transition from one of those 4 reasons to another reason. That's how you can get beyond mechanical. It's that to go from selfishness to Krishna-centeredness, that Krishna is to be pleased. Now, how do I do that? Well, start the 2 things. Foremost of important is your chanting, because that's our primary means of deliverance for the sage. So how you regard the holy name, and what's your relationship with the holy name? Well, it's just something I do because I'm supposed to do it, because I'm told it's good for me, so that's mode of goodness. I do something because it's good for me. It's my duty. I'm supposed to do it. It'll be good for me. So I do it. I don't have an attraction for it. It's kind of like mechanical. So then you have to ask, is there a spiritual reason for me to want to connect with Krishna? I spent this time, gave this example. It was meaningful to me on the topic of sankalpa, which means, in one sense, what's your intention? When you're chanting, what's your intention? So, long story short, with physical therapy, I learned this from a physical therapist. What's really helpful to get physical therapy to work is there's an intention behind why you're doing it. Not just do it mechanically. It doesn't have the same effect. But what's your intention? So the physical therapist drilled me. I mean, it was polite, but why do you want to do this? Because it's important. So my experience was, when I was meditating on, I want to be able to walk around Govardhan Hill. There's a yatra coming up, and I don't want to just be an old man or riding in a rickshaw or a taxi or something. I want to be able to walk around Govardhan Hill. And when I was doing those physical therapy things, thinking Govardhan Hill, it had a healing effect that just doing didn't have. Although doing and doing. As with physical therapy, even more so with bhakti, why are you doing? Say, what's important to you? Or, over here is birth, over there is death. What goes in the middle? What's the mission of this human form of life? Supposing you don't ask the question. And supposing you do ask the question. Just asking the question helps you get an answer. So your question, how do I go beyond mechanical, is, what's the real purpose of this? What's the purpose of bhakti? What's the essence? What's the life of bhakti? And is that really me? Or am I doing it just because something? You have to go to a deeper consciousness to go beyond mechanical, because otherwise it'll stay mechanical. And I remember specifically, when my mind would just go to mechanical, it would be there for a while, till I realized, Govardhan. And then even Govardhan was like a little mechanical sometimes. But if it was devotional, because I love Govardhan. I mean, anyway, not just notional, I have a feeling for Govardhan. And it meant a lot to me to be able to walk around Govardhan Hill. So what means a lot to you in your life? I mean, besides the duties of life and all those things, what your mother and father taught you and what your family is all about today, and where you're going tomorrow, in all directions of time. What's really important to you? Even if you don't have a quick answer, you can give a textbook answer and check the box, and that's also mechanical. That's not what so don't do that. I mean, you can do that. You can start there. But really keep asking yourself, do I really want a relationship with Krishna? And is a relationship with Krishna accessible? Little old me? This guy that's mechanical? And, et cetera, et cetera. You can have some humility, introspection, but it's there, and it's to be, so sadhu sangha, self-introspection, take little steps at a time. Do something in your daily life, starting with japa and maybe one other thing, that's done from your heart for the pleasure of Krishna. 5 times a day. Keep a little, one of my friends kept a little 3x5 card in his pocket. And, he would go out of his way, 5 times a day, mark it on a 3x5 card. I'm going to do something just for the service of another devotee, because I want to make my heart soft, because I have a tendency to be proud. And that little something moves a lot of other somethings. So, chanting, and then something that you do in your daily life that's doable. And then do it. Then, consistent. So it's not mechanical. I want to get to whatever your sankalpa is. That which is really important to me. And it's only a little step, but in that direction. And that's progress. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's phrase I live by. Progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. But what's the direction? What's important to you? What's the goal of your life? At the end of your, this thing that leadership people say, when you're at the end of your life and you're looking back, what do you see? What do you want to see? So you haven't wasted your life. You know that phrase, begin with the end in mind. And so look, when I'm at that stage and look back, what do I want? And then you make steps to get to what you want, to what's important to you. That's the materialists, what to speak of on a spiritual front. So whether you're satisfied with all the material details of career and this and that, all those things, how much money you make and all those things, how big your house is, or whatever the things are that are important to on the material side. The spiritual drives the material. The spiritual well-being, from spiritual well-being, material well-being follows like a shadow, follows an object. So is spiritual well-being really important to me? Obviously, you wouldn't be here asking the question. So give attention to that. Now, what are some steps to give attention to that? It's not doable ones. And the principle is Rupa Goswami's principle. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So that's a short version, and there's longer versions from the heart. You remind me? I'll send you you can, because it's important. We don't want to just keep being mechanical. That's like, I can do it because I'm not going to stop brushing my teeth. Okay. Okay, let's do online, or yesterday's questions. Let's do yesterday's questions. Online, then yesterday's. Yeah. And it's already 10 after 8.
Maharaj, this comment is from Arun Raju Prabhu, Ananta Seshadas Prabhu.
Yes.
He thanks you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sancharidasi Mataji has another question. This is from today morning's class. Kamsa was born from a demoniac associate taking advantage of his mother. Was Kamsa cursed from birth to be demoniac, or was it pastime? For personalities,
No, it wasn't pastime, nor was he cursed from birth. He had a demoniac nature, and he got a suitable situation to be a demoniac person. That's how.
For personalities from Krishna's Leelas born into Asuric society or circumstance, is there no chance for them to live any other type of life?
She's speaking in Krishna's pastimes or today?
This was from today morning's lecture.
Her question, is it circumstances today or circumstances in Krishna's pastimes? The nature of her question is which of those two?
It just says, is there no chance for them to live any other type of life?
Who's them? People in Krishna's pastimes or Donald Trump?
Personalities from Krishna's Leelas.
Okay.
Born into... Sorry.
Excuse me. Yeah, they have options. And some respond and some don't when the options are presented to them. Okay?
Yesterday's evening question was, again from Mataji. My question was around what is the reason behind the need to identify a point of creation. Is the reason we can't convince...
The point of creation? The point of creation? Does that mean time or place? Doesn't say.
No. The question continues.
Okay.
Is the reason we can't conceive of eternity because by being in this world are conditioned to think in terms of creation?
Yes. We think in terms of our experience, which is past, present, and future time, not time eternal. We just, the mind doesn't go there because it's material mind and it's beyond our experience. So we can't even, we can say what it's not, but we can't say what it is because it's beyond our experience. Next.
Maharaj, we hear Nitya Siddhas, they're always in the spiritual world, they never fall down.
They don't fall down, but they can be in Krishna's pastimes in this world.
Yeah. But trying to understand, are there hierarchies in the spiritual world in souls?
No, they're not. I'm a card-carrying Nitya Siddha. It's not like that. The Siddha is Siddha, not like that.
So then there are some group of souls which can always fall down and some which will never fall down.
Your question itself is misleading. This is, now I'm repeating Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The question that places the event within time as we know it is misleading. The event in time as we know it goes like this. Once upon a time, and then some time passed, and someone pulled on their chin and said, you know what? And then boom, they fell. That's an event within time. It's not an event within time. The question itself, the contemplation itself, is misleading. We cannot, say it the other way, we cannot understand it if we continue to approach the question as it's a material cause and effect. It's no material cause and effect. It just doesn't fit. So we can keep asking, we won't understand it because it's misleading. The question itself, the frame of the question is misleading. It's like this earlier thing of what eternal time is. And how can we conceive of eternal time? So just take a deep breath and say, okay, I'll understand it when I become a liberated soul. And that's what Prabhupada writes. And until then, we're not going to understand it. It falls within the purview of material forces, and we're looking at, falling down is not a spiritual event. We're accustomed to looking cause-effect, because that's how matter works. You wiggle this and it wiggles something over there. There's cause and effect. And that's within time. We know it's before the wiggle and then after the wiggle, the effect. It's not like that.
Just trying to understand. I mean, there's no classification of souls like that? Or
Well, there's a spiritual hierarchy, just like Radha is a superlative amongst the gopis, for example. And the gopis are her expansions, and they're not the fullness of Radha, and they're there for Radha's pleasure. So there's a hierarchy, but they're all perfect. They're not like, hey, I'm Radha, don't mess with me. No, it's not like that. Okay? There is hierarchy. And there's intimacy of love amongst the gopas, and there's intimacy amongst the elders. So, but it's not a material hierarchy. There's Nanda, he's the king. There's a hierarchy. And there's cowherds. And he's the king of the cowherds in the spiritual world. That's a hierarchy. But it's not a material one.
But the hierarchy in the terms of some souls can fall down and some cannot fall down.
You're asking the same question, and I already given the answer to that one. Don't think like that. It's the same mistake, just stated in a different way. It's the same mistake. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.